Right, today I'm going to talk about something called Operation Pegasus, the anniversary of which was the other day on the 22nd of October, but I didn't make a video then, so here we are. Now, Operation Pegasus sometimes gets confused with something called Pegasus Bridge, which was an operation that occurred in Operation Overlord, or D-Day as people call it, but the British paratroopers actually had the Pegasus emblem as their emblem, and so a lot of things got called Pegasus in World War II. Now, Operation Pegasus was part of the Battle of Arnhem. If you haven't seen my Battle of Arnhem video, I shall put a link down there. Surely you've all already seen it. So the Battle of Arnhem was part of Operation Market Garden, which was a bit of a failed attempt to get into Germany in the autumn of 1944. When Operation Market Garden failed, they tried to bring a lot of the troops out in something called Operation Berlin, but a lot of the men who fought at the Battle of Arnhem actually got left behind. They were captured by Germans or they were in German hospitals. A lot of them ended up hiding out with the Dutch resistance. Now, the Battle of Arnhem and Operation Market Garden ended on the 26th of September. So what happened in Operation Pegasus? It was basically an evacuation of a lot of the men who got left behind, about 139 men. It all started with someone called Major Alison Digby Tatham-Warter, who I shall do another video on because he's pretty brilliant. He was injured and handed over to the Germans, but managed to escape a German hospital on the 21st of September and went and hid out with the Dutch resistance. Now, he was laying low for quite a while, but the Dutch resistance were hiding a lot of British paratroopers, and eventually they had to sort of call him in to help them manage them. The idea was to stay put, and they thought the Allies would be trying to make it back over the Rhine and they could carry on fighting. And it soon became clear that nobody was coming and they would actually have to make it out themselves. So someone called Lieutenant Colonel Doby swam the Rhine River. God knows how cold it was or how wide it was, but he did it and he managed to make it to the Allies on the other side. Now, Doby managed to get in contact with Tatham-Warter back on the other side of the river, and they worked out this plan, which was Operation Pegasus. And it was the Royal Engineers of the XXX Corps and Easy Company, who you may have heard of the American 101st Airborne, who were put in charge of getting the men back over the river. Now, the operation was supposed to take place on the 23rd of October, but the Germans started evacuating the town, after which it would be kind of difficult for the paratroopers to come out of hiding, but also if they came out in the crowds as they were leaving the town, they'd managed to make it to the river basically under cover. Now, on the night in question, the Allies on the other side of the river sent up tracer fire to indicate the point at which they would cross. And the men who were being evacuated flashed the V for Victory sign with their torches to let the rescuers know where they were. Nobody actually says anyway how you flash V for Victory, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be in Morse code. Now, everything went pretty well, but the men to be evacuated were actually about 600 metres upriver, so Easy Company had to leave them waiting for 20 minutes, which was probably a little bit scary for them. But the operation went pretty well. They took the boats up the river. They took about 3 hours getting all the men back over. There were supposed to be 139 men evacuated. They were mainly British paratroopers. There was one American paratrooper, and there were a couple of Dutch civilians and a Russian fighter. Couple of Russian fighters who wanted to come over, but one Russian man got captured by the Germans, so they only lost one man. 138 made it back over the river, and they were took to a farmhouse for refreshments, and then Lieutenant Colonel Doby had a champagne party for them, because that's how they did things in those days. You know, there's a lot of operations and plans and things that went down in World War II, but I think this is one of my favourites. They would have been injured, God knows how much food they had, the Dutch resistance were hiding them in cellars and attics, and you would have thought they'd be pretty beaten up about the whole thing, and they still had the wherewithal to organise themselves an evacuation plan. And a man of quite a high rank swam across the cold Rhine to get the Allies in on it. It's pretty impressive. I really like it because it shows, like with the Battle of Arnhem, what men can do, or what people can do, when they haven't got much on offer to them. Now, if any of this story sounds familiar and you're a Band of Brothers fan, it's because there's an episode called Crossroads where you can see Easy Company rescuing the men. I don't think rescue is a proper word here now. I like to think of it more like the men were escaping and they just needed a few boats. No disrespect to Easy Company or Royal Engineers, but I've got to admire that 139 men that sort of got themselves organised. Yeah, they're pretty cool.